Part 8. Pirate's Bounty Don't Run Away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 71. The quiet night seemed to be brewing a storm, and the sky, which was originally bright with few stars, was already covered with clouds in the blink of an eye. Shung. In the room, Luogu looked at Robin, his eyes sparkled. Robin fell silent. After a long time, with the sound of thunder outside the window, she said, "A boring weapon of war? Crocodile will do anything for this boring weapon of war. And now, you suddenly appeared in front of me, expressing your respect for this boring weapon of war. I dismissed everything, and I don't know where I got the news about me. From today's meeting, no, since you were still in Donghai, you have already started to plot against me, but you made me believe what you said everything of." She looked at Luogu. "Why? I come from a faraway place." Luogu let out a sigh of relief, not paying much attention to Robin's aggressive words. Just smiled softly. "I came here through a way that I don't even know how to describe. I even don't know how I should go home." "Very interesting." Robin glanced at the book on the table. "Are you sure you can convince me like this?" "I'm just telling you a fact," Luogu said. "I have no interest in so-called war weapons. In future cooperation, you can completely hide any part about war weapons from me. The reason why I pursue the text of history is just because all the information published in the world today has no way for me to go home. From this, I thought of those hidden things. And, I am not sure, whether they record these." "It sounds very disappointing." Robin said. "So, can you tell me, where are you from? If one day, I can really go home, I will tell you." Luogu picked up the black tea on the table and poured Robin a cup. "But, if I'm destined not to be able to go home, then what's the point if I can't say it? Say a place name that you've never heard of before. How much can you trust me?" Robin nodded, "But this still doesn't convince me." "What a stubborn woman," Luogu sighed helplessly. "But, it's gone." "Huh," Robin blinked. "What's missing?" "I don't have anything to say anymore," Luogu said. "I'll say what I have to say, and of course I won't tell you what I can't say. And the final choice is yours. Whether you want to be my partner or not is up to you. It's up to you, not me. But I'm sure Crocodile won't let it go. By the way, there's one thing you probably don't know, Alabasta has 2 historical texts." "2 UN, Robin was taken aback. "Where is the other one? Where did you get the news from?" Luogu grinned. "It is in a certain section of the desert in Alabasta. I don't know exactly where it is. It is a ruins buried under the desert. I plan to visit there along the way." "Luck. The ruins under the desert." Robin said thoughtfully. "If what is under the royal tomb of Alabasta is about the location of Hades, then this part should be the real history." After finishing speaking, she suddenly looked at Luogu in shock. Luogu blinked. "What's wrong? Just tell me so easily." Robin frowned. "Why can't I tell you?" Luogu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "In this world, apart from you, I'm afraid there is no one who can interpret the historical text. If I don't tell you, I can't understand it when I find it, so what's the point? You frankly make people weird." Robin was a little speechless. Luogu took a sip of black tea, stood up and walked to the window. It was already pouring rain outside. Through the window, Luogu saw ISS Valentine and Dashki and the others busy on the deck. He didn't know if it was because of his eyesight, but he actually saw a big duck following them around. Rubbing his eyes, Luogu turned around and said, "Do you want to follow me to find that piece of historical text? Do you want to know what the content is? Think." Robin smiled. "But, I want to see it myself." Eating alone, Luogu spread out his hands. "I guess it will be short-lived to deal with a woman like you. Otherwise, if you find any words beyond common sense understanding in the historical text, you can tell me." "What does that mean?" Robin asked. Beyond common sense. If there is, you will know, Luogu said. If not, there is no point in telling you. Is this the case again? Robin didn't seem very happy, but nodded again. But I promise you. After she finished speaking, she stood up. Crocodile, what are you going to do? His status as a Shishibukai will be taken away soon, Luogu said. If your hands and feet are fast enough during this period, I think you can extract someone like Nicole Robin from Baroque works. Erasing the name will only leave a code name of is, and will not allow people to pursue it to the end. You are in the Navy and have your own power. No, I just know a Navy idiot, Luogu said. After all, as a pirate hunter, I always have to deal with such a guy. In this way, I really have to hurry up. Robin walked to the door and looked back at Roku. Crocodile has the ability of rustling fruit, and it is difficult to hurt him with a sword. If you don't, it's hard to win if you use restraint. Also, the red one is the permanent pointer to Alabasta. After saying this, she opened the door and walked out. Luogu looked at the pointer on the other side of the table, and tickled the corner of his mouth. It's not a good habit to eavesdrop on people's conversations. Is it a rustling fruit? Holding the red permanent pointer in his hand, Luogu pondered for a moment and said thoughtfully, remember that this kind of fruit is afraid of water, right? Is it really necessary to carry a bucket on your back, just like Luffy? Luogu thought for a while, then shook his head. Too stupid. Then he took the phone bug and dialed the number recorded on the paper. After a while, the creamy yellow snail's head suddenly became dejected, its eyes drooped, and it asked in a feeble tone, who is it? Stupid brother. Luogu said with a smile, it seems that time can't change your incorrigible nature, and you can't even hear my voice. Noro's Rogu. The head on the phone bug suddenly became excited, and a loud voice sounded, you idiot, why are you calling me now? Pirate's Bounty, don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 72. Regarding the question of why he called Lester now, Luogu thought seriously for a while and then answered. Forgot. Yes, forgot. According to common sense, when Rogu got the phone bug from Smoker in Rogtown, he should have called Lester. After all, although Smoker would send documents to Lester, Rogu should give an explanation for this matter. But, he forgot. When he set off from Rogtown before, he always felt as if he had forgotten something. It wasn't until Robin said that he had the power of the Navy that he realized that he hadn't contacted Lester yet. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone bug, and after a while the phone bug roared wildly, you stupid brother. Luogu frowned, feeling that he was far away from the ocean. This guy really had a lot more courage. Gently rubbing between the eyebrows, how about that? You ask me how I feel, Lester said angrily. Without saying a word, Smoker threw a document to me. Do you think I can do anything with this? Sure enough, he's just a stupid brother. Luogu curled his lips. So much information has been delivered to you, can it really just be treated as useless waste paper? What did you say? Lester yelled. I tell you, Sister Tina has set off and headed straight to Alabasta. Now I'm going to investigate everything about Crocodile and Baroque works. Tina, Luogu pondered for a while, but he really couldn't match up with these Navy people in his mind. Hi Santina. Luogu suddenly realized, that woman who always likes to say, Tina is very angry, dissatisfied, Tina is very dissatisfied, and Tina is very embarrassed. Remember that she has a good figure. How do you know? Also, where did you remember it? Lester's voice through the phone bug was full of surprise. Luogu smiled, don't worry about the details, if it's her, it's not a big problem. In addition, I found the princess and the captain of the guard in Alabasta, and I have already got a piece of effective information from them. Will it be intercepted if it is passed to you through the communication bird? Only our Navy intercepts other people's intelligence. When has our Navy been intercepted by others? Lester is full of pride and confidence. Luogu blinked his eyes, really non-committal to this kind of words. But if it is something very important, then I will give you a number. Tomorrow morning, you call this number and dictate everything while I record it from the side. Lester added. Let me dictate, Luogu said. Can the Navy say it's okay? Of course the Navy will do it, Lester wondered, but why is there a Navy on your ship? Dasakai, Luogu said, when I left Rogtown, Smoker arranged for this woman. Oh, Sergeant Dashiki, Lester nodded and said, it would be even better if it was her. The phone bug I gave you is originally a phone bug inside the Navy. If the Navy calls and transmits information, if so, it is much better than you, a pirate hunter. Even, there is no need to specify a time, and a normal operator can answer it directly. However, considering the seriousness of this matter, it is really not suitable to make it public now, right? According to the agreement, at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, you ask Sergeant Dasaiki to make this call, and I will record it. After that, I will obtain the official documents as quickly as possible, and deprive the official documents of the identity of Shishibukai, the king. Understood. Luogu nodded. In addition, if his identity is deprived, can it be made public within a short period of time? Is there a demand? Lester asked. What kind of impact will it cause? I dare not say specifically, because I haven't had any contact with this person yet, Luogu said. I'm worried that he ran away early. Are you going to fight him? Lester's voice raised several decibels again. Impossible. None of the king's Shishibukai is an ordinary person. Crocodile's information is very well recorded on my side. In detail, his ability is extremely terrifying. Shush a fruit, Luogu said with a smile. I know it. You have a fart. Lester roared. A person with the ability to be a devil fruit of nature, if you fight against such a person, you can't even touch the corner of the opponent's clothes. Unless you have armed domineering. Luogu's mouth suddenly opened into a flamboyant smile. So, I have one more thing I need to ask you. What? Lester suddenly had a bad premonition. Yes, that's it. Then, please do everything. After hanging up the phone bug, Dasaiki wiped the sweat from his brow, and looked back at Luogu and Wei Wei beside him. It's okay, all this has been recorded over there. The next thing is to get Crocodile. Wei Wei heaved a sigh of relief, and then her eyes fell on Luogu. I really don't know how to thank you. For her, everything that happened now was like a dream. Originally faced with great despair, there was nothing he could do, but in the blink of an eye, the peak turned around. This R5 who suddenly appeared turned out to be a pirate hunter who had deep connections with the Navy. Moreover, he is not those wild dog-like guys who just chase money, but a true bounty hunter who truly pursues justice and is not afraid of the name of His Majesty Shishibukai. All of a sudden, the way Wei Wei looked at Luogu changed, as if she was looking at a great existence. Luogu was terrified by this look, and glanced at Dasaiki who had the same look. Thinking in his heart, this little princess must have been poisoned by Dasaiki. He waved his hand. You don't need to thank me, I also have my own purpose. Crocodile just blocked my way. If you want the text of history, the two pieces of alabasta should not be missed anyway. Crocodile's character fundamentally eliminates the possibility of sharing with Luogu, so only by taking this thing away can he finally achieve his goal. With a creak, the door opened, and ISS Valentine walked in from the outside, bringing in a blast of cold wind and white snow. When I first woke up in the morning, the weather was still hot like summer, and within the time it took to make a phone call, it was already snowing heavily outside. Captain, we have adjusted our course, and we should be heading directly towards Alabasta now. ISS Valentine put the things in his hands on the ground and said, in addition, I found them on the deck. Unlucky combination. Wei Wei just took a glance, and already recognized who these two guys who were almost frozen were. R13 and ISS Friday. Another name, unlucky combination. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate's Bounty, Don't Run Away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 73. How come they're on our ship? Wai Wei stared in astonishment at the two animals that were about to freeze to death. Luo Gu thought for a moment and thought it was probably Robin who did it. He smiled and said, "It's good. We can have extra food today. Additional meal." Dashki, SS Valentine, and Wai Wei looked at Luo Gu together. Luo Gu blinked. Is there a problem? Just eat it like this. Wai Wei felt that her brain could not keep up. Luo Gu shook his head. Of course not. The three women breathed a sigh of relief together. I heard Luo Gu say, frying, 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 simmering, stewing, and stewing without any processing is not just an act of drinking blood. The most important thing is that without high temperature heating, the parasites in the body are likely to cause we are sick. The three women were blindfolded together. The two animals on the ground, which were about to freeze to death, were dripping sweat from their foreheads. Luo Gu suddenly laughed loudly. Okay, just kidding. The three women and the two animals were relieved at the same time. Eat it raw, Luo Gu said. As soon as the two animals heard this, they suddenly stood up. SS Friday flapped his wings and started shooting at Luo Gu with the two machine guns on his body. But before it started, Luo Gu had already stepped on his neck, and stepped on the ground again. R13 is a sea otter with two extremely sharp claws. It jumps up and is about to scratch Luo Gu's face. However, the blade flashed, and R13's body was immediately knocked away and hit the bulkhead. Just as he was about to get up, he was also stepped on the ground by a foot. It was Dashki who drew the knife. She retracted the blade and said, I cut it with the back of the knife. The one who stepped on the ground was SS Valentine. She looked at the otter on the ground and smiled helplessly. Since you are already on the boat, don't struggle anymore. Luo Gu took one look, kicked SS Friday away, and said, tie him up and then lock him up. The duty of these two guys is to transmit information. Knowing a lot of information, it is indeed a pity to eat it directly. SS Valentine nodded, quickly tied up the two animals and threw them into the lower prison. When she came out, she saw Luo Gu sitting there alone, while Daisuke and Wei Wei were on the deck outside. I was a little confused for a while, and I dared to call out, Captain. Luo Gu glanced at her and smiled slightly. It's been dealt with? You're already familiar with the road now. SS laughed twice on Valentine's Day. Could it be said that he was forced by life? SS Valentine's Day, is it just a code name? Right, Luo Gu said. After this trip, if I lose, you will probably die too. If I win, you will probably be taken away by the Navy. Do you have any ideas? There must be ideas. SS Valentine's Day was heartbroken. She didn't know what would happen to her if she didn't do anything. As a member of the Baroque Work Club, once Crocodile is defeated, he will definitely be on the Navy's reward list. And Crocodile won. How could he let go of himself who had had so many contacts with Luo Gu? What's more, the original incident seemed to have started because he and R5 invited Luo Gu. Although Crocodile is sure that she definitely did not say her identity, she will never use herself again. Therefore, if you want to protect yourself, there is only one way. I just didn't expect that Luo Gu would talk to her about this matter so soon, and she felt a little nervous for a moment. Luo Gu gave her a puzzled look. What's the matter? Tell me. Can I stay? SS Valentine said, I want to stay here. Really willing, Luo Gu glanced at her. You know, although you say you are pirate hunters, you are actually different from me. Moreover, what I want is different from those pirates. Stay on this ship on board. I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. Yes, I do. SS Valentine took a deep breath. I am willing to stay on this ship to realize the value of my life. Luogu rolled his eyes. If you want to realize your own life value, it's not enough for you now. You still need to do more. Do more. SS Valentine's Day looked at Luogu's eyes with ulterior motives, and felt sad in his heart. Has this day finally come? Originally, I thought that this guy was not that kind of person, but I didn't expect that he was just not in a hurry. Anyway, he had already fallen into his hands, right? It's on his plate anyway, right? So, when to eat, do you have no choice at all? Thinking of this, she gave Luogu a sad look. I understand, I will go to your room tonight. When saying these words, tears rolled in SS Valentine's eyes. However, Luogu's mouth grew bigger and bigger, his chin almost fell to the ground, and he quickly stood up and said, Hey, wait, you, what the hell are you talking about? Huh? SS Valentine glanced at him and shook his head. No need to tease me anymore. I already know your purpose. It doesn't matter. I'm desperate now. If this is the only way out, I won't do it at all, no choice. What kind of drama is suddenly staged? The corner of Luogu's mouth twitched. I mean, you need to do more training. Train. SS Valentine was stunned for a moment, and his emotions became incoherent. What do you mean? You are eating light and floating fruits, which have very powerful potential. Luogu wiped the sweat from his brow, glared at her, and said, but you are really too lazy to make progress, and you don't know how to work hard. The ability to develop fruit, kilograms is already the limit. No, in my opinion, the ability of the devil fruit you ate has not been brought to the extreme at all. You have to break through the limit of kilograms and become stronger. Otherwise, on this ship, you will only die sooner or later. Becoming more powerful, SS Valentine blinked. So, this is what you mean. Otherwise, Luogu's face darkened. I know how to think wildly all day long. Can I not have something positive in my mind? Crocodile is just a small goal in front of me. There are many powerful guys on the Great Route, not to mention newcomers. There are countless strong people in the world. What you will face in the future will be beyond your imagination. If you keep the status quo, you will find that soon, you will not even be qualified as a fitness machine. After saying so much in one breath, Luogu finally recovered from his emotions and glanced at SS Valentine with a faint expression. Now, your name? Makita. SS Valentine suddenly realized it, and then said loudly, my name is Mishita, Captain. Pirate's bounty, don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 74. With the permanent pointer to Alabasta, Rogo's ship can reach Alabasta directly without any detours. If we don't talk about the chaos and all kinds of weird weather on the Great Route, this journey can be regarded as smooth. At least, after sailing for 2 days, no one was seen on the sea. When Luogu was free, he would dive into the bottom of the water and look for sea kings. Although there were gains, they were not too much. But enough to eat. Everyone on board has his own thoughts, and Dashiki's mind is full of righteous thoughts, thinking about arriving in Alabasta as soon as possible every day, so as to bring the mastermind behind the scenes to justice. Wei and Ikaram are thinking about the riots that are happening in their own country, and they are even more eager to return to their hearts. Only Mishita. After that exchange with Luogu, this woman finally felt relieved. The ever-present frivolous smile once again filled his face. I don't know how he managed to keep his face from cramping like this day after day. In fact, Luogu felt that what he said to Makita before was a little too early. After all, they are not very familiar with each other, so talking about partners like this is too idealistic. But Luogu couldn't let this woman go. It's not because he is fair and beautiful. Anyway, in the short term, Luogu has no intention of finding a woman to warm his bed. She couldn't be let go because of a very practical reason. There is really nowhere to find such a good training equipment. Talk to her earlier, and say that she will not kill her in the future, and she will not be handed over to the Navy. At least it can reassure her a little bit. Otherwise, when she wakes up one day, she can't think about it for a while, and she can't escape, so she jumps into the sea. What if I commit suicide? People in this world have very strange brain circuits and can do all kinds of strange things. Luogu felt that if he said what should be said earlier, he could avoid long nights and dreams. Looking at it now, the result is not bad, at least Mikita is much more enthusiastic now. They are busy every day, not only serving as Luogu's training equipment, but also the big and small guys on the boat are indeed many times stronger than Daisuke. Dashki was a little dazed. Apart from the daily practice, he was always in a hurry to do any work on the boat. Obviously, this woman is proficient in swords, but she is basically an idiot when it comes to housework and other tasks, which is a headache. It was noon, and everyone had just seen that the weather was good, so they set up tables and chairs on the deck, and then prepared to taste a Neptune-type meal full of sunshine. As a result, halfway through the meal, there was a hailstorm, and in the end they all cursed the hellish weather on the great voyage, while moving all the tables, chairs, and benches into the cabin. After eating, the hail outside also stopped. Mikita went out to check the condition of the hull and see if it was damaged. Waiwei took Ikarum, as expected, this name is more comfortable, to wash the dishes. In this regard, the little princess is still very willing to help, and she does it in a decent manner. It is much more powerful than the plate destroyer Daisuke. Daisuke stood beside Luogu with empty hands, hesitating to ask for some work, but he couldn't say anything, he was too embarrassed. Just when he was at a loss, the door of the cabin opened, and Mikita said loudly, "Captain, there are pirates." Pirates? Luogu's eyeballs burst into brilliant light at that time, and Daisuke was also refreshed. She is really not good at work and other things, but when it comes to catching pirates, she feels that she can do my part. The two people appeared on the deck almost at the same time. Dashki pressed the knife with one hand and looked around. Where is the pirate? Where is he? When I turned around, I found that Luogu had disappeared. Left side Luogu's voice came from above his head, what the hell is that ship? As soon as Daisuke looked up, he saw Luogu was on the watchtower, holding a telescope in his hand. He was stunned for a moment. How despicable. There is a three-mast ship on the left, which is extremely huge. The center seems to be circular, and there are huge gears on both sides. I don't know what it is for. The bow of the boat looks like the head of a hippopotamus-like animal, and the body of the boat is covered with decorations like snowflakes. A pirate flag is fluttering in the wind, with a skull with its tongue sticking out and a crown on it. Luogu looked at the ship, thought for a while and said, "It seems familiar." "They're here." Daisuke said, "I didn't expect the pirates to meet the Navy when they saw the Navy. It's just too crazy." Mikita looked at the big characters of Pirate Hunter on the sail behind her, and felt that the reason why they came here probably wasn't because they knew there was a navy on this ship. Waiwei and Ikarum also came to the deck, accompanied by a huge duck. There was a small bucket hanging around the duck's neck, and a straw from somewhere was inserted into it, and the other end was stuffed into its mouth. While watching the excitement, he was drinking vigorously. Luogu jumped down from mid-air, broken down. "Aren't you leaving?" Waiwei said in surprise, "They look like a lot of people." "As a pirate hunter, how can you run away because there are too many prey?" Luogu stretched out his hand and pressed the knife. "What's more, there is nothing to fear when hanging on the wall." This symbol popped up on everyone's foreheads. Luogu coughed, "Okay, just wait." In fact, there was no need to wait, because the ship was chasing at an extremely fast speed. When Luogu spoke, the two ships had already completed the docking before Mikita dropped the anchor. And in just the blink of an eye, Luogu's ship was already filled with the other party's people. Luogu, Dashiki, Makita, Waiwei, and Akalem, including the duck, were all pointed at guns. Moo ha 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 ha. Crazy laughter rang out. In the sea area, there are still people who dare to claim the title of pirate hunter and swagger here. I don't know when a short fat man stood on the bow. While talking, the sword in his right hand was stuffed into his mouth, and he ate vigorously. Pirate hunters and so on can only be used as food. Pirate hunter. De Psyche frowned. This is the naval branch of Rogtown, Sergeant De Psyche. Since you dare to appear in front of me, please make up your mind. The moment the voice fell, the sharp blade was unsheathed. In just a flash, the people surrounding it were already scattered in all directions without even seeing what happened. Ha 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 ha. Makita covered her mouth with one hand, and flew into mid-air while laughing. Pirate or something, to appear directly in front of our pirate hunters, it is really brave and foolish. Well, if you don't let seeing the cruelty of reality, you may still be full of unrealistic fantasies about the future, right? The body sank suddenly, and a huge force fell from the sky like this. Boom! The people surrounding her saw a hole suddenly appear on the deck in front of her, and Makita struggled to climb out from the lower warehouse. At this moment, Luogu recognized the guy who was about to disembark from his boat, and lost his temper for a moment. It turned out to be Walpo. No wonder, he didn't even have 4 lines of characters on him. Pirate's Bounty Don't Run Away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 75. Valpo. King of the Drum Kingdom. However, it is said that because Blackbeard once attacked this country, the king directly abandoned his country and ran directly to the sea with his men. Claiming to be a pirate is actually nothing more than a small person hanging a layer of pirate skin, after all, just ran to the sea to take refuge. This guy doesn't even have a reward. This made Luogu lose all interest in this guy at once, but suddenly thought of something. Here, is it not far from the magnetic drum kingdom? Luogu thought thoughtfully. The drum kingdom did not have much appeal to Luogu, but that little cute deer liked to activate the reverse hiding technique. Do you want to take Chopper home? When this thought arose, Luogu's 4-ton iron rod had already circled around these people. Not everyone can bear a 4-ton iron rod. These guys with guns disguised as pirates are actually the regular army of the magnetic drum kingdom. However, he couldn't resist such an attack, and flew around for a while. Within 2 steps, Luogu had already come to Walpo. This guy opened his mouth at an unbelievable angle, facing the lower port of the ship. Luogu frowned, holding the iron rod with both hands, and hit suddenly with a home run posture. Walpo's eyeballs bulged for a moment, and with an unstoppable posture, he pierced through layers of sound barriers and voids, and flew back to his ship directly. With a bang, the largest mast broke at that time. Luogu glanced back. The stragglers on the ship, let alone De Psyche's opponents, even Waiwei and Ikaram, they couldn't beat them. Almost all the kung fu in this moment was brought down. He raised his head and glanced at Mishita, who was flying into the air again. Seeing that she seemed a little unwilling, he pointed at the pirate ship opposite. Sink it. Clear. Makita was in high spirits, for making such a fool of herself just now. Luogu didn't even reprimand him, and even gave him such an important task, immediately turned the umbrella and flew towards the opposite side. The people on the opposite pirate ship were still surrounding Valpo, checking for injuries. After making sure there was nothing serious, I turned around and saw Makita flying over. Ha 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 ha. Mishita laughed as she flew, not knowing what was so funny, and just arrived directly above the pirate ship on the opposite side. Now, after saying 2 words and thinking about it for a while, I felt that the embarrassment just now was too big to be full, so I launched an attack directly. Hearing a bang, he sat down directly on a pirate, but took his body directly to the lower deck. Just as he was about to step forward to check, he heard another loud noise from another direction. When he turned his head, it was Mikita who flew up again from another place. What remains unchanged is still the ha 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 laughter, flying up, falling, flying up, and falling. At this scene, Luogu was dumbfounded. It's fine as a training device, but I didn't expect it to be so sharp as a lethal weapon. Above the sea, relying on nature is the boat under your feet. If the boats are all scrapped, then what a fart. All of a sudden, everyone on the pirate ship was dumbfounded, and quickly shouted, "Stop! Stop quickly! Shoot, kill her! Ha 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 ha!" Mikita laughed wildly, her eyes turned into crescent moons, she covered her mouth with one hand, pretending to be reserved, while flying up and down. The speed was so fast, these people wanted to lock her figure, but they couldn't do it at all. Although in Luogu's hands, she doesn't even have the ability to escape, but facing these people, she does have strength worth boasting about. How is it? Have you seen the reality? Do you know the horror of the pirate hunter? While destroying the opponent's ship, Mikita proudly said, "I will turn you into the remains of the sea, and let you know what kind of price you have to pay for offending the pirate hunter." After finishing speaking, his figure suddenly fell like a meteor. After a loud bang, the pirate ship on the opposite side was already riddled with holes. So strong. Daisuke stood beside Luogu, building a canopy with her hands, and said in surprise, "Is she such a powerful woman?" Luogu touched his chin, as if he was thinking. Then I heard Wai Wei say, "Why haven't you come up yet?" "I'm thinking about this too." Luogu pinched his chin, and then said, "I guess she probably used too much force." Immediately afterwards, I saw someone climbing up from the pothole on the deck. "It's not good, it's not good, it's leaking." "What about that woman?" a guy in a strange suit asked loudly. "Cracked the bottom plank and fell into the sea." The men answered loudly. Luogu's face darkened. "This idiot." After speaking, he jumped and fell into the water. Dashiki and Waiwayakalum, including the big yellow duck Karu, fell into a short-lived state of encirclement. "What?" Daisuke suddenly exclaimed, "Luogu is also a devil fruit-capable user. He's also a landlubber. Why did you jump in?" Kalu flickered anxiously and spun around the ground with his big wings. Akalum had already taken off his coat and was about to go into the water to save people. Suddenly the water splashed in front of his eyes, Luogu's figure broke through the water, and he jumped onto the deck in a volley. The woman under the armpit was directly thrown on the deck. It was Mikita who was almost unconscious. Then everyone looked at Daisuke together. "What about the landlubbers?" Daisuke thought for a while, and then said, "That's right, Luogu went into the water and caught Neptunes before. Why didn't you say it sooner?" Waiwei and Ikarum roared at the same time. Dashki scratched his head and smiled sheepishly, "I forgot." Quack. Kalu suddenly stretched out a wing and pointed to the distance. Luogu turned his head and saw Walpo's big ship drifting away. "Want to go?" Shaking his head and smiling, Luogu was already standing on the deck in a single jump. Holding Kuromaru down with one hand, he held his right hand on the handle of the knife, Len Yu One style. With a flash of the blade, the cold moon swept across the sky. The huge crescent moon blade treads on the waves and plows the sea. The waves were rolling and undulating, and the crescent moon suddenly accelerated, and in a flash, it had already swept across the middle of the Walpo ship. The big ship is still sailing, but as it runs, it breaks into two halves. The sea water poured in, and the two halves of the big ship floated on the sea surface. Including Walpo, a group of people could only find a limited place to keep themselves from being surrounded by sea water for the time being. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate's Bounty, don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 76. Luogu's knife actually did not cause too many casualties. The main target is the ship, and if you are not particularly unlucky, you will not die easily. However, although he didn't die, he was almost terrified. What kind of powerful knife is this? Big swordsman. The man in strange clothes murmured. This fear, as if it could be passed on, swept through the hearts of all the staff in an instant. Especially when Luogu, who slashed the knife, jumped onto the wreckage of the ship, everyone felt that their doomsday had come. Luogu looked at them, but was a little embarrassed. How to deal with these guys? Kill them all? Convenience is convenient, but there is really no benefit. Take away? I can't even tell if the Navy wants it or not, they're just a bunch of pirate OSPI enthusiasts. Not to mention that he was not listed in the Navy, but Walpo is one of the kings who can participate in the World Parliament. At this moment, Luogu stood in front of this guy, looking at him. He also looked at Luogu, and after taking Luogu's blow, he didn't know what kind of thing this guy's body was made of, but there was not much damage. Not only that, when Luogu looked at him, his stomach growled unexpectedly. He scratched his head and smiled embarrassedly, very hungry. Luogu hesitated, and then said, "Is there a permanent pointer to the Drum Kingdom?" "Have." Before Valpo could speak, the man in strange clothes next to him said, "Are you going to the Drum Kingdom?" "I have a permanent pointer here." "Bring it." Rogu held out his hand. A permanent pointer was immediately placed on Luogu's hand, but Luogu's hand did not take it back, all of them. "What?" The man froze for a moment, and continued to speak, but the moment he raised his head and met Luogu's eyes, a cold feeling swept over his whole body. He took a breath, asked his companion for another one, and put it in Luogu's hand. "There are only two, one is spare." "Very good." Luogu picked up one, crushed it, and threw the residue into the sea. The other waved his hand and threw it to Makita. Turning around, Luogu jumped back to his boat. The people on the wreckage looked at Luogu's back, hesitated to speak, until Luogu's ostentatious boat drifted away, and then they looked at each other in blank dismay. "Next, what shall we do?" Everyone looked at Walpo together. Walpo looked at the sinking wreckage and the water above his feet, and said silently, "I'm so hungry." "Is that enough?" Dashki stood on the side of the stern of the ship, looking at the wreckage of the ship that had sunk into the sea, and asked Luogu. Luogu nodded. "This kind of useless pirate should be swallowed by the sea, which is the best destination." Daisuke also nodded. "It's just that I thought you should exchange him for a bounty." "It's worthless." The corners of Luogu's mouth twitched. Daisuke didn't recognize Walpo's identity, so he thought that this guy was also offered a reward. In fact, that guy is just a pirate lover. A king was attacked at sea and sank his ship. If he just listened to this, Luogu would become a wanted criminal in no time. But there is this naval sergeant as a witness, proving that Rogu just beheaded a pirate's ship and let the sea swallow them up. In this way, Luogu will have nothing to do. Pity. Luogu sighed, still a little distressed. It would be great if it was a real pirate. "What's the pity?" Daisuke asked immediately. "Ahem, it's a pity that their heads are lost." Luogu felt that Walpo's identity still couldn't be told to this righteous young lady. Daisuke suddenly patted Luogu on the shoulder solemnly. "There is no need to continue pretending." "Huh?" Luogu looked at Daisuke blankly, and then at her hand on his shoulder. "I've seen through you completely," Daisuke said seriously. Luogu was even more confused. What? He himself didn't see through his special brain circuit, why was he suddenly seen through by a natural fool? In order to carry out the name of justice. That's why you came to the sea, right? Daisuke looked at Luogu seriously. Luogu was at a loss, if it is to implement justice, wouldn't it be better for me to join the navy? This kind of excuse can only deceive ignorant people. Daisuke suddenly said excitedly, the reason why you want to become a pirate hunter is to hone your swordsmanship. In this dangerous sea, in this sea where pirates are infested, only the reputation of a pirate hunter, only then can all the pirates show their fangs to you. Only in this way can you use them to hone your swordsmanship. What? Luogu was surprised. Did he have such a purpose? There's no need to pretend, I've already seen through you. Daisuke looked at Luogu with longing eyes. Suddenly, it's great, for this purpose, I can train myself and move towards a better road. I can't be burdened by my status, but I can still carry out the task thoroughly. Your own justice, punish the villains at sea. You definitely did not become a pirate hunter for money, you are a bright light in my kendo career. This almost allows me to see clearly the originally blurred road. Looking at Daisuke, who was burning up by himself inexplicably, Luogu knocked on his forehead, not knowing how to persuade him. The point is, the reason why I became a pirate hunter is really only because of money. How can I buy coins without money? How can I improve my skills without coins? If you can't improve your skills, how can you be a wall hanger? But even if such a thing is said now, it will not be believed, right? After all, this girl seems to have already determined something that she is very willing to believe. Suddenly there was a shadow flying over the head. When he looked up, Mishita was holding the permanent pointer obtained from Valpo and the others and said, Captain, do we want to change direction? Luogu looked up, and finally stretched out his hand. Mishita put the permanent pointer on Luogu's hand. After Luogu hesitated for a while, he shook his head, forget it, I won't go. There are still things to do now, and the most important thing is. Most importantly, that little guy probably won't be willing to follow him, right? What it longs for is the freedom of pirates. Not the freedom of a pirate hunter. The goal remains the same, Alabasta, let's go. As soon as Luogu extended his hand, Mishita nodded immediately, understood. Pirate's bounty, don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 77. Guided by the permanent pointer to Alabasta, Rogu's big ship of the pirate hunter headed all the way to Alabasta. A few days later, it entered the waters of Alabasta. Here, normal sailing experience can come into play, and the climate begins to normalize. Sunrise in the east, rain in the west, hail in the morning and scorching sun at noon, finally improved. On this day, Luogu was reading in his room when there was a knock on the door. Please come in. Luogu didn't look up. It was Vivi who opened the door and came in. Luogu glanced at the girl in surprise, and smiled softly, what do you want from me? Wei nodded slightly awkwardly. Although the two of them had been on the same boat for so long, they were not very familiar with each other. Except when exercising, Luogu spends most of his time reading miscellaneous books in his room, and reads them with great interest. If it wasn't for the delay in exercising, eating, and going to the toilet, he would be able to see the next morning from the morning. This also led to Wei having almost no contact with Luogu. Luogu got up and pulled a chair for her in a gentlemanly way, sit down and talk. Wei nodded and sat down, we'll be there soon. Rogu nodded. So, there is something I want to ask you to do. Wei looked at Luogu. Luogu said, if it is to deal with crocodile, this matter is my purpose. No, it's not about this. Wei said, after arriving in Alabasta, can we act alone? Acting alone, Luogu glanced at her, are you sure? Although I have arrested some of the stronger ones in the Baroque Work Club, there should still be many of you in this organization. It is a difficult opponent to deal with. If you act alone, it is very likely that you will fall into a dangerous situation again because of the loss of my protection. Luogu's words were very pertinent and polite. But the core idea is also very simple, you are very weak, it is very dangerous to leave me. Wei bit her lip and nodded, I know, but there are some things I have to do. For example, Luogu asked with a smile. And the rebellion in Alabasta, Vivi said, since everything is caused by crocodile, then the rebels have lost their position to continue fighting, and I cannot let them continue. Luogu thought for a while, but finally nodded, yes, I remember that there is a port city. After arriving there, you can move freely. I will replenish supplies there, and finally go all the way up the St. Dora River, looking for crocodile. If I fail, but you succeed, the country will still be saved. Wai Wei's face suddenly turned red, and she waved her hands hurriedly, wanting to say something, but she swallowed it back. Finally stood up and bowed deeply to Luogu, anyway, thank you. Luogu also stood up and said with a smile, I said, there is no need to say thank you, because this is my purpose. After Wai Wei left the room and closed the door, a smile appeared on the corner of Luogu's mouth. Isn't this a sign of lack of confidence in me? He picked up the book on the table, and poured himself another cup of black tea, so, just to be on the safe side, the troops will split into two groups. As long as they can make the rebels reach a settlement with this country, the danger of Alabasta will be lifted. After that, there is only one crocodile who has lost the skin of the king Xiaoshi Shibukai. With the intervention of the navy, it is really not necessarily afraid of him. Well, it's just such a thing, it is Wei. Can this little girl Wei think of it? Ikaram. Shaking his head, he didn't care about it. Whether it's Wai Wei or Ikaram, they can do whatever they like, and they can live and die as they wish. Wealth and honor are in the hands of God, and since they have made a decision, they should do it. It's just that way. He subconsciously poured a cup of black tea and smiled thoughtfully. Half a day later, the ship docked. Everyone parted under the boat. Wai Wei and Ikaram solemnly thanked Luogu. Without Luogu's protection, it would have been almost an impossible task for them to return to Alabasta so smoothly. First of all, they can't deal with the senior agents of Baroque Works. And Wai Wei said that when Alabasta is completely liberated and the original peace is restored, Luogu and others must be entertained, and then thank them again. Luogu smiled and nodded, but didn't say anything more, and everyone just parted here. Wai Wei rode Karu, and Ikaram ran behind, and disappeared in a blink of an eye. On Luogu's side, only himself, Makita and Dashiki are left, and Dashiki is guarding the boat. Luogu took Makita into the town, and when they came out, a camel cart followed the two of them. It was full of food and drink, and a few workers were found on the side of the pier to help carry it to the ship. After everything was packed up, and just as he was about to leave the port and enter the Sundara River, Mishita's phone bug suddenly made a purr sound. Mishita didn't think much about it. After the connection was connected, Crocodile's gloomy voice sounded, SS Valentine's Day. Mishita almost threw the phone bug into the sea. I'm not. After subconsciously saying this sentence, she looked at Luogu with tears all over her face, her eyes full of helplessness. Then who are you? Crocodile's voice was suspicious. SS is all Sunday, Luogu said, she is already mine. Crocodile was silent, and a moment later Robin's voice came, this kind of lie that can be exposed directly is really very low level. Luogu scratched his head, oh, this is embarrassing. R5, I can give you another chance. Crocodile's voice sounded again. Luogu smiled and said, have you figured it out? Are you going to make me the boss? Take the person you captured and come to Albina, Crocodile said, I'll wait for you here. Why don't you come to the beach, and I can wait for you here, Luogu said with a smile. Crocodile fell into silence again. After a while, he sounded clearly annoyed, my patience is limited. Really, Luogu thought for a moment and said, okay then, you wait for me in Alba, I'll go there right now. It is good. Crocodile hung up the phone bug. Makita looked at Luogu, and Luogu said, let's go, let's go. To Albina. Tubalogo Gugzu looked at Makita with narrowed eyes. Makita was surprised. Then what you just said? What do you believe? Are you a primary school student? Logogu sighed helplessly. Don't be so straightforward. Pirate's bounty, don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 78. Rainland, a dream city in the desert. The largest casino in Alabasta, the location of the Rain Banquet. At this moment, in a luxurious office deep underground in the Rain Banquet, Crocodile hung up the phone. Glancing at Robin, who was sitting at the desk with his back turned to him, his eyes flickered, and he took a sip of the cigar in his mouth. Do you think he will go? Strong and confident people often blindly believe that they can overcome everything. Robin frowned, looking at the smoke in the sky, and then said with a smile, in comparison, have you really made up your mind? Now that he knows my identity, he has no other choice. Crocodile's face was solemn. I will solve all the troubles in Albina. Robin jumped down from the table. Well, I wish you success. Where are you going? Crocodile looked at Robin's back as he turned. I just received the news that they have separated. We cannot let that princess ruin our overall plan. Robin said, although Logogu's appearance was an accident, we can't let this accident continue to ferment. So, I'm going to catch this princess and her guards now. Crocodile smiled. It's really reassuring to have you here. Robin turned his head and smiled at Crocodile, and when he turned his head again, there was no smile on his face. She gently pressed the brim of her hat, walked to the door of the office, and was about to open the door, but heard Crocodile's voice behind her, wait a minute. Robin's heart suddenly tightened, and when he turned around, his face had regained his calm. What's wrong? How on earth did you escape from him? Crocodile's voice was low. Robin showed a hint of surprise, then smiled and said, what are you suspecting? It's nothing. Crocodile closed his eyes. Be careful. Robin nodded, turned around, opened the door, and entered the underwater passage. This office is opened up in the water. After walking out of the gate, Robin breathed a long sigh of relief. In fact, it is not so easy to fool the sand crocodile. Fortunately, the foundation of trust between the two is extremely weak, which has instead become the foundation for continuing. As long as interests can still form a bond, as long as the goals of two people are still in an unfinished state, no matter how weak the trust between each other is, they can still reluctantly go on together in the end. Walking up the passage, a smile appeared on the corner of Robin's mouth. Even if you don't trust me, can you still walk together for the same goal? As long as you guard against possible accidents, it's a pity that I still don't know that there is still the power of the Navy standing behind that hunter. But, how far has it gone? Who will Albina become in the end? Looking at the banana crocodile swimming in the water outside the passage, Robin shook his head. It's better to do the most important thing to do now, otherwise it will still be very troublesome if something is found out. In the office, Crocodile poured himself a glass of red wine. There was not even the slightest smile on his face. After drinking the red wine in the glass in one gulp, the glass shattered into pieces in his hands. Noros Rogu. A pirate hunter who came out of the East China Sea, with a mysterious identity and a blurry background. He knows a lot of things, and the source of the information is unknown. Be hostile to yourself. And took away Princess Wei of Alabasta, although they have separated now. So next, what else will he do? No matter what it is, he can no longer be allowed to continue, so let's solve all this in Albina. For Crocodile, the only thing that is fortunate now is that the guy did not inform the Navy of his affairs. Otherwise, the Navy would not be as peaceful as it is now. Is he worried that his identity as a pirate hunter will not be trusted by the Navy? Or, he has other plans? After pondering for a moment, Crocodile also stood up, but, the reason is actually not important. Closing his eyes, a sneer formed at the corner of his mouth. Bulub bulub. The phone bug rang, Crocodile connected, and a voice came from the other end of the phone bug. I'm calling you for the first time, and I'm a little excited. I've arrived at my house, let's start. Well, let's start. Crocodile's stern voice carried determination. Okay, the voice on the other end was very frivolous, the carnival is about to begin. All the way up the St. Dora River, it didn't take half a day before the boat docked. The shore was full of yellow sand, and Luogu felt the surrounding air was extremely hot as soon as he set foot on it. It's really a spooky weather. Luogu glanced at Mishita floating next to him. Are you sure you can reach Yuba by moving forward from here? I'm not sure. Mishita waved the map in her hand and said, but that's what the map says. The corner of Luogu's mouth twitched, and then he said to Dashiki on the side of the boat, please take care of the boat, we will be back in 3 days at the latest. If we haven't come back by then, you can go directly to Albina, we will meet there, remember not to directly conflict with Crocodile. Understood, Dashki said, the harsh environment in the desert is not suitable for phone bugs to survive. Please be careful. What should be explained, after what should be said, waved goodbye to Dashiki, Luogu took Makita and started to go deep into the desert. To him, this was the first time a big girl got on a bridal sedan chair. Before crossing, he had never been to the desert to play. Now that he set foot in it, he really felt the fluidity of the sand, and how difficult it is for action. After half a day's journey, the sky was getting dark, I didn't see Juba in front, and I couldn't see my big pirate hunter ship in the back. Standing on the desert, if it wasn't for Makita floating on his head, there would really be a feeling of being trapped on an isolated island, adrift and helpless. If this is the old me, I'm afraid I won't be able to walk a few steps, and I will be finished. Luogu glanced at Mishita floating in the air with some envy, swaying in the wind. This ability is really enviable. Speaking of devil fruit, there seems to be another one on board. Do you want to go back and eat? What kind of ability is it? It's just that if I eat a devil fruit, can I still use my diving skills? Anyone who eats a devil fruit will be disgusted by the sea and become a landlubber. This seemed to conflict with my own skills. Hey! Luogu suddenly asked Makita, I heard that there is something called Devil Fruit Illustrated Book, do you know? Devil Fruit Illustrated Book, Makita said, I've heard of it, what's the matter? Do you know where I can get it? Luogu was suddenly a little excited. Mishita smiled, fell from the air, tapped the ground with her toes, and was about to speak, when there was a pop, the person was gone. Luogu moved forward, and there was a pothole in the desert, and sand flowed down along the edge. This, can't it? Luogu looked at the hole, dumbfounded, could it be that I am also the hidden emperor? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate's Bounty, Don't Run Away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 79. Luogu was going to Yuba, of course not to meet the father of the rebel leader who lost weight successfully. He just wanted to try his luck and see if he could find that ruin in the desert. Of course, if he couldn't find it, he wouldn't waste time. He would go straight across Juba, to the rainy land. Unexpectedly, after Makita fell from mid-air, she actually directly pierced a hole in the desert. And no matter from which angle you look at it, from front to back, left to right, this is obviously the entrance of a relic, and it is definitely not the existence of quicksand. So after Luogu was surprised that he still had the hidden European emperor attribute, he jumped and jumped down. Halfway through the jump, I saw Makita flying up unsteadily, and reached out to press her head, just like pressing a balloon that was floating upwards, and pressed her to the ground, followed by Luogu also landed on both feet. Mishita was confused. Captain, why are you down too? She stumbled and fell just now, and she didn't panic. For a person who can make herself float, this height is not enough to make her tremble with fear. But unexpectedly, Luogu also came down. Could it be that, the captain was worried that he was in danger, so he came to save himself? This kind of thing is impossible in the Baroque work club. Indifference to human feelings is the norm. Looking at Luogu again, for a moment, my heart was filled with emotion. Luogu's eyes swept around the area. The dark space seemed to be quite large, and there was no historical text as far as he could see. He glanced at Mikita and asked with a smile, "Are you okay?" "Fine. Real hammer." The captain really cared about his own safety, so he jumped down to save himself. Mikita looked at Luogu with tears in her eyes. Luogu was puzzled. "It's okay, why are you crying?" "Captain, I will." When Mikita said this, she suddenly stopped and shook her head. "Nothing. Some words do not have any power when they are spoken out, and it is just a matter of judging their performance in the future. No matter how much they say, it is meaningless. You feel weird." Luogu glanced at her. "If nothing happens, just take a look at what's here." At this moment, Luogu felt that he might have misunderstood something. Sure enough, not everyone has the attributes of a Huang. It is not possible to find a piece of historical text by digging a hole in the desert. It is good. Mikita felt that her whole body was full of strength, and she rushed forward. Seeing Feng Huo's attitude, Luogu was secretly surprised, thinking to himself, was this girl working in a demolition office before joining Baroque works? How to explore a ruin, there is an aura of planning to demolish this place. I was a little worried that this guy was frizzy, turned around and collapsed the whole ruins. Luogu followed closely behind Mikita 2 steps. The underground space was soon turned around by 2 people, and the general situation was clear. If the place buried by sand is excluded, it is probably a square with 4 corners, similar to a hall or a hall. In the entire hall, there are a total of 9 stone pillars for support, and there are 4 directions around which can pass, but 3 places are buried by yellow sand. After walking along the last passage for a while, there was a collapsed building barrier at the end. Mishita was a little disappointed. "Captain, there is no way." Luogu nodded. He had already thought about it before. Since he is not the Emperor of Europe, there is no such thing as digging a hole and finding a piece of historical text, so it is normal that this road is a dead end. Just as he was about to turn around and leave with Mishita, a breeze suddenly blew from behind him. "Wind." Luogu paused and glanced back. "There must be room behind here." "Captain, let me move them away." Mikita rolled up her arms and sleeves. Luogu shook his head. "Step back." Mikita obediently retreated behind Luogu, and saw Luogu put one hand on the black pill. Crazy Moon 131 Styles. The fragmented moon stirred up the chaotic madness and turned into a sword light all over the sky. The light of the knife is like the moon, but the light of the moon is like water. When the water rushes wildly, the building fragments blocking the front turn into sand at a speed visible to the naked eye. Mishita stared at the scene in front of her in stunned silence until all the sword lights were retracted. With a soft click sound, Luogu retracted the sword, and the obstacles in front of him had completely disappeared. The sharp blade was like the wind, blowing away the sand all over the sky. "There is really room." Luogu's eyes lit up. He greeted Mikita, and the two walked inside together. After a few steps, he had arrived in another space. The degree of dilapidation here far exceeds that of the hall outside. Collapsed stone pillars and piles of yellow sand buried most of the space. A huge stone with square corners, buried in the yellow sand, revealed a small part of its true appearance. Luogu looked at it, and after all, he couldn't hold back the smile that showed on his lips. "I actually found it." "Found it?" Mishita was also very happy, and then asked, "What is this?" "Historical text." Luogu didn't hide it. Oh, Mishita nodded repeatedly. It turns out to be the text of history. After finishing speaking, he blinked again. Well, it's just a historical text. The corner of her mouth twitched, she recalled it carefully, and then she was dumbfounded. Why is it a historical text? Why does my captain know the historical text? Although she didn't know much about this thing, and only knew some fragments from other people's mouths in the past, she also knew that once she got involved with this thing, nothing would end well. But, the captain of his own family actually knew this kind of thing. And, happy to have found such a thing? Lifting her stiff neck, she could almost hear her neck creaking, like an unoiled wooden door. Come here and help me. After meeting Luogu's gaze, I heard Luogu say so. Mishita was in a daze for a moment, then nodded, here we come. Whatever, don't care, maybe it's just because this thing is more valuable, right? And even if there is a deeper purpose, what else can I do? Hasn't he already decided that he will use actions to prove his loyalty to the captain in the future? In contrast, the captain did not hide anything from himself. Now is the time to confirm his loyalty. Mishita cheered up and came to Luogu's side. How to do it? Help me clean up the surrounding sand, and then rub the content on it. Luogu glanced at her, smiled and said, this is very important to me. Mishita was stunned for a moment, then took a deep breath and nodded vigorously, I understand. Pirate's bounty, don't run away. Author, The Desolate Little Purity. Chapter 80. A piece of white cloth was printed with strange characters. Each text is like a messy line put together, forming a generally square type, but the connection between them is basically invisible. Before seeing the historical text, Luogu also imagined that if the historical text were written in Chinese characters, wouldn't it be very convenient for him? But in fact, not so. This is definitely a kind of writing that is completely beyond this world and belongs to another civilization. 100 years of blank history is hidden in these words. Luogu frowned and pondered for a while, put away the white cloth, and then looked at Makita next to him. The girl seemed a little distracted. Luogu snapped his fingers in her ear, and she stood up in excitement. Captain Makita looked at Luogu. Luogu smiled and said, I'm afraid. Mishita shook her head, no, I just don't understand. Since you know the text of history, you should also know its dangers. Rogu nodded. Then why are you looking for these things? Asked Mishita. Because of some special purposes, Luogu said with a smile. Don't worry, this kind of thing will not be known to anyone as long as no one says it. Mishita was stunned for a moment, and then suddenly realized, it makes sense. If you do something bad and don't tell others, then of course no one will know and it won't cause any trouble. As long as I don't say anything about the historical text obtained from the ruins under the desert in front of me, no one will know the content of the historical text that the captain got. Therefore, there is no danger. There is no danger, why should you be afraid? Mishita immediately became more courageous. After coming back to her senses, she found that Luogu had disappeared. She quickly looked for her and saw Luogu waving to her at the edge of the passage. Let's go, the next stop is Yudi. I came here just for this historical text. Since I got it so lucky, I don't need to waste any more time. I just take a boat and continue along the Sandora River, and I will soon reach the rainy land. Mishita hurriedly followed, but still couldn't hold back her curiosity. Captain, do you know what these words mean? Do not know. Then what is it that you want to know? Don't tell you. Ah, the disappointed sigh was followed by a slightly playful voice. How about you secretly reveal something to me, and I promise not to tell anyone. It took about half a day to get here from the boat, and it took the same amount of time to get back to the desert to figure out the direction. Such a quick return made Daisuke unable to react. Originally, they thought they would have to wait for several days, but the two returned to the boat in the middle of the night. To Dashki, Luogu did not directly tell his purpose. He just told Dashki, the situation has changed. Let's go to the rainy land immediately. Listening to Luogu's words, Makita inexplicably felt a sense of superiority. Look, the captain is honest with me, but hides it from you. As expected, the captain and I are closer. Dashki's trust in Luogu had reached the level of axe, and she had no doubt at all. At that moment, everyone pulled anchor overnight and headed straight to the rainy land. The scenery on both sides of the strait under the night is not attractive, after all, it is all bare sand. Luogu withdrew his gaze from the window, and concentrated on the white cloth on the table. After a moment of silence, he took out a pen and paper and wrote a letter. I just took the letter paper, read it for a long time, and tore it up again. Communication bird, it's a little too unsafe. There are no other methods of contact. It's really not easy to contact Robin now. Luogu scratched his head, thinking that after the previous communication, he forgot to leave his contact information, lamented his lack of thoughtfulness, and suddenly felt a sense of urgency in his heart. On this sea, the phone bug can certainly play a role in communication, but it is too unsafe. The military can eavesdrop and intercept the content of the call, which can easily expose its own purpose. The security of the communication bird is even worse. Who knows, will some bastard be able to knock down the communication bird when it's okay? Maybe it's also nutritious and has a good effect on exercising. He nodded with his fingers on the table. Sure enough, I need a dedicated messenger. But for a while, there was nowhere to find this thing. The two animals in the lower prison do have talents in this area, but the problem is that they probably cannot betray Crocodile. Especially under the current situation, once they are released, they must fly away in a blink of an eye, and pass their information to Crocodile. Headache. After thinking for a while, Luogu decided to hide the white cloth first. After looking around the room, he finally spread the piece of cloth flat and placed it under the quilt. Afterwards, tell Makita that you don't need to wash my sheets. Luogu was relatively satisfied with his talent for hiding things, and was nodding secretly, when suddenly he frowned and looked outside the door. A moment later, there was a knock on the door. Luogu picked up the iron rod weighing 4 tons, and when he arrived at the door was being pushed open, but Luogu put down the iron rod in his hand. As soon as a woman stepped back, she had already entered the room, turned around and smiled at Luogu. Luogu curled his lips and said, "If I hadn't recognized you, you would have been lying on the ground frothing now." Robin glanced at the iron rod in Luogu's hand and smiled again. "It seems you like the gift R4 gave you very much." "He is a good man." Luogu put down the iron rod. "So, the way to treat a good person is to trap him in prison." Robin shrugged. "There is food and drink in the prison, and it can also prevent him from going out to do bad things." Luogu sighed. "I am really worried about this good man." It would break his heart to hear those words. Robin sighed softly, and then said, "I came today because I want to tell you something." "Let's talk." Rogula opened a chair and sat down. "Crocodile launched his plan in advance." Robin said, "That's why he asked you to go to Albina." "Are you planning to erase me directly at the critical moment?" Luogu curled his lips. "Then what?" "Her Royal Highness the Princess is in Yuyan now." Robin said, "I caught him, and I will also go to Albina next." Luogu was thoughtful, then nodded and said, "The Rainland was originally my goal. It seems that my trip was in vain." Robin sighed. "Tomorrow at noon, if we can't stop him before then, everything will come to an end."